just another pagan man.
And woman.
In the woods anywhere you'll find me, paying homage to the great man. Lone Wolf Show, everybody. We have Jason Myers from Icarus Witch in the building, backstage, coming to join us right now.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Absolutely.
And you're joining us from Pennsylvania?
I am from the cold hills of Western PA, south of Pittsburgh.
South of Pittsburgh. Cool. We lived in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania for a while.
Cool.
What is it? That's a big state, Pennsylvania is.
It is, yeah. It's like when you're
what goes on in the wintertime for Jason Myers of Icarus Witch, man? I mean, are you writing songs? I mean, are you working like another job? Is like music a full-time deal? Like, what's the story, dude?
We do the bulk of our writing in the winter, yeah, because it's a natural downtime. It's a time to go inward and tap into your creativity. It's like today, it's 20 degrees out. I don't mind going out in the cold, but it's not the best time to go out and drive around and play shows and stuff. We've done that in the past. So yeah, I just use this time to really go inward and write music, write lyrics, write poetry, do all of those fun things, and then bring them out into the spring and hit the road then. But yeah, I have a lot of other things, a lot of other irons in the fire. I do public relations for a living. So that's something I work remote. And when I'm on the road, I was always looking for something to do while I was on the road that I could make extra money with. So I've been doing that for about 10 years now. So that continues on through the winter.
Go ahead, Monica.
Do you do the public relations with the other music artists, or is there a specific group you do that for?
I do it for a range of clients, actually. My background is in music, in the music business and music PR, but lately I've been working with all kinds of different organizations, nonprofits, companies like green brands and things like that. So not just music. I actually hadn't done music PR for a while. I came out of retirement to promote our band, even though our record label has a publicist and does all that stuff. Icarus Witch had been doing this for 20 years, and I wanted to reconnect with some of the writers that have been there with us from the beginning. So I started reaching out myself and kind of got that bug again. And it was fun reconnecting with all the old writers and journalists and TV hosts and such, but also meeting all the new people that have come up that are in the scene now.
So Icarus Witch, I pronounced it in my head incorrectly. Thank you for that.
Is it Icarus? Icarus Witch.
We say Icarus.
Icarus. Okay. Shame on the lone wolf for that'll never happen again. But that's why we love doing these interviews. That's why
no problem.
We love doing them. So Icarus Witch, where did that name come from exactly?
Where a lot of our stuff comes from, the spirits in my head, I guess you could say. Like, I was living in Los Angeles about just over 20 years ago, and again, working in the music business, and I wanted to do a more traditional metal style band. That's the music I grew up with, and was actually having trouble finding people that were into that style. But like, I had a vision of what I wanted the music to be like. But if you remember what the scene was like in the year 2000, 2001, it was not super friendly for traditional metal, to say the least. It was, it was new metal was the thing. And it just sort of came to me. I always do certain like versions of spells or seances and try to touch base with my spirit guides when I'm reaching these like crossroads in my life. And that was one of those times where I cast a circle and was asking for visions, and I pictured the name just sort of came to me out of nowhere, and I scribbled it down. Actually, I kind of wrote like a logo down, and I was like, that kind of rolls off the tongue, and I just put it away. And it wouldn't be till years later where I moved back to Pennsylvania and started finding the people. And I'm like, this is what Icarus Witch was, all that time. It just took me a few thousand miles and another year of searching, and then put it all together. So that's the story of where that came from, just out of the ethers or wherever we channel these things from, right?
Yeah. Yeah, often I get visions of something clear in the future and I have no idea what it's for. And then later, all the puzzle pieces come together and it's just like, oh, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, I love that. That's one of the coolest things about being a creative, for lack of a better term, is that you're able to tap into things like that would seem kind of maybe frightening or bizarre to other people, but we just get used to it in our world.
Yeah. Now, do you practice spiritually with your band members?
Not really. No. I mean, most of my practice is with my wife and with the Cabot Kent Hermetic Temple. That's my tradition. The guys in my band have their own systems and beliefs, and we've discussed it and we talk about it. And my co-writing partner, Quinn, he's an old pagan soul, and he and I go back years on this. So we walk slightly different paths, but it works for us, when we come together to put the lyrics and the music together. But at the same time, I kind of see like our live shows as a ritual every time. And like, before we go on stage, I always kind of do like this blessing type thing, not, if you didn't know it was happening, you would just think I was like trying to shoo a fly away or something. But it's just a way of like calling the circle real quick for us as a group so that we can put our best energies forward and connect with the audience. And so that's where that ceremony and that magic comes together with the rest of the guys. But in terms of like actual day to day and Sabbats and things like that, I mostly do that with a different group.
Have you considered to bring that ritual on stage and share it with your audience, kind of like Heilung does?
Heilung is awesome. I saw them last year in Detroit, and I was mesmerized. I do think that we will probably start to bring a little more of the theatrics and spirituality into our show. We kind of got away from that over the years, and it wasn't intentional. It was more just like a lot of times we're playing festivals where you like fly across the country and you've got a 35-minute set, so you don't have the luxury of all your props and costumes and everything necessarily. But we're planning on playing the new album in its entirety, something we've never done. And with that, I want to tap into a little bit more of telling a story from start to finish and having a little bit more of the ritual theatrics in it. So looking to get more into that in the new year.
So do you consider yourself a bard?
I have thought that in the past. Yes, I would, the modern version, in the sense that I think that what we're doing, what I try to do anyway, is tell stories, put forth a positive message. But at the same time, I've never thought of us as like a religious band. And I never wanted to just, even though I'm an out witch, I've never wanted us to be like just that. I never wanted us to be just the same way I wouldn't necessarily be turned on by a Christian band, even if they had amazing music. If that's what they were pushing, I'd be like, well, maybe that's not for me. So with our music, it's always there. The lyrics are very clear if and I'm very out about it. When people ask in interviews, I don't shy away from it. But I think that in general, I feel like it's kind of private, but I'm also sharing it with the world, So the bards were known for using the music and poetry and allegory and things of that nature to tell stories, and that's what we do as well. There's always an underlying message of hope and of warnings, and like on this album especially, I think underneath all of the sci-fi and witchcraft, it's an ecological message that we're trying to put out. Is like we need to protect Gaia, we need to protect our mother, and if not, we're going to run out of time. it's pretty simple. The warnings are all around us. So I'm trying to put that message out, but without coming off as like a preachy or political type band. So I guess that's bardic in a sense.
Do you believe when you put that out in your intention in the music, and then people listen to that, they bring that energy into it too, and so it gives your that spell or that what the message your music was putting out more power? Do you feel that?
Yes, absolutely. It's like an incomplete circuit unless there's somebody on the other end to connect to it and continue that energy flow. So I love it. At the same time, like I mentioned before, I'm not, if somebody just thinks, oh, this is a cool record, this is, a cool metal album or a cool metal band, that's fine too. Everybody can dig in at their level of comfort, but we do have a large contingency of pagan and witch followers who might not even listen to a lot of metal, or maybe they used to listen to metal and they think this brings them back to the kind of music that they grew up with or something. So those are the ones that are really rewarding to me, when people do dig on that deeper level and resonate with the pagan aspects and the mentions of goddesses and things of that nature. That's what does it for me. But I'm not going to turn away anybody else that doesn't necessarily follow that. And as long as the people that are there know what we're about, and that is spreading more on this album, because we actually put a song that's sort of a witch anthem on this song, is something that I really felt strongly about, and we hadn't been that bold about it before. That resonated with a lot of witches and pagans, and that was the intention of it, was to unite the pagan community. This song, Rise of the Witches, so that in that sense, that's way more rewarding to me from a pagan perspective, is that we got to reach out. Even like on the song itself, there are over 20 witches in the background singing, of all different traditions and denominations, and that's power to me. That's like, the song is about unity and about coming together, and because you see so much division sometimes across the internet, but also within our own pagan umbrella, that's a little disheartening to me. I'm like, we've got to stick together, because there's a lot of people that would just like to squish this whole thing, and put us back in our place, so to speak. So this was a song of like, all right, let's bond together here and think about ourselves in terms of a community, to push back against those who might try to take us back in time to lesser eras where we were less safe. I'll just say that.
Yeah, definitely.
Like less civil rights.
Yeah, right.
Monica, you got another question?
Yeah. So, do you have that in a music video form?
We did a lyric video for that. So if you go on YouTube or our website, IcarusWitch.com, and look for Rise of the Witches, you'll see all the artwork that I did with the assistance of some with Midjourney and Photoshop and things of that nature. We put together this lyrical concept video that takes you through it. So you'll see the lyrics and you'll hear all the voices coming together in the chorus. It gives me chills, especially when you get to the end of the song and you hear all of these witches saying, we are witches, we shall rise, united far and wide. I love that. I love that all these people lent their voice and their power to it and are sharing it.
And that's what our station, Witchcraft TV, promotes, is a voice for all in community. And we would love to play that on our station if we can get permission, and we can talk about that later.
Of course.
Go ahead, Harold.
We already play Icarus jams, man.
Oh, we do. Okay.
Monday through Friday, 8 to 9. You can find them. Those several Icarus jams that they've sent over. You can see, and also at 5 p.m. in the evening to 6, where we run our pagan music matinees. So yeah.
Yep.
But
permission granted.
Is there new? Do you have new music videos for that 7th album? That website.
Not yet. We're going to be shooting another one probably next month for the song Heaven's Ghetto. That's breaking news here. I haven't told anybody that, but we're just waiting on a couple things, and then we're going to shoot a live video for that song. That's the lead off track on the album. So that'll be our second. Yeah. I've got some ideas. We were going to do them before in the fall, and then it was just like, no, let's wait. Because we'd thrown the album out right before Samhain, and then we had the videos coming out that we had already produced, and just wanted to give it time to breathe, let it go over the holidays, and then come back for a second round. And it's actually coming out. The album comes out in Europe officially next month in February. So we're going to put another round of promotion behind it then, and that's when we'll start putting more videos out and start announcing more live shows and things like that.
Is there anything publicly that you can say that Icarus is going to perform for the 2024 calendar? Is there anything you can put out there?
Like show dates?
Yeah, anything in stone right now you guys are going to be at somewhere specifically?
No, oddly enough, this is a rare year. Normally, by the time we get to January, we've already got like the cornerstone dates booked, but we don't have anything set in stone yet that's announceable. We've got a couple things kicking around in the background, and I'll definitely let you know when that gets a little more solid. But we're going to meet soon after our kind of holiday break, and that's normally what we do. Just take a few weeks off and then reconvene and put together our strategy for the new year and see where we're going to go. Throw darts at the globe and find out what country we're going to go visit next. We've been going to Germany the last couple years, and Switzerland, and we really have started to build up a little bit of a swell over there, and so we might head back over there again. And but there's a lot of places. This is a big country we live in too, so there's a lot of places we want to hit up or revisit. We've been to most states in the past, but a lot of them we haven't seen in a long time. So we'll see. It's different, it's a different animal than 10 years ago. I see these memories coming up on social media of these tours that we did, and we used to just get in the van and go for like 30 days or whatever. And everything's so different now. Like the cost of everything, the way the world is, the way people are, and the way the music business is. It's amazing how much things can change in a decade, but we'll still get out there and find our way.
Monica, I have tons of questions. You got some? I got tons.
Yeah, so I'm here in Wichita, Kansas, and it's a big heavy metal scene here. I lived here for 5 years previously before coming back this last September. Are you maybe going to come back by this way? Have you played here often?
We played Wichita. I want to say 2012 maybe, because I remember we were calling it Icarus Wichita. There was like a big festival we played there with a bunch of 80s bands. We were on tour with Y&T, I think, at the time. I think that was when that tour was. But I remember like Twisted Sister was on the show, and Winger, and like all these like 80s metal bands were on it. And it was so hot. You guys aren't messing around in the summer. It was like, that was the hottest show I ever played. It was like 108 degrees on the stage. I remember my shoes were like melting to the stage. But
they have a really great small, they have a really great small venue here called the Cotillion. And I've been to several heavy metal bands performances at the Cotillion. Look it up. If you can get here, that would be great.
Yeah,
and it's cool. It's air conditioned. It's indoors, but it's a small venue, and it's very nice. Very nice.
Awesome. I always like to hear from locals what their cool spots are, because that's usually where, instead of when you don't know a town.
Anytime you hear of like somebody, in the pagan community that's involved in the craft, embraces earth-based spirituality. I mean, on the website it says that you rocked out with Black Sabbath. You rocked out with Black Sabbath. Tell me about that, man. That's badass.
Yeah, well, I guess technically it was called Heaven and Hell at the time, the Ronnie Dio version of Black Sabbath. It was around 2005 or 6, I can't remember now, when we were approached by the management, a lady, Diana DeVille, who is also pagan witch, and she was working with Dio, with Ronnie Dio's management out in Los Angeles, and she liked our band and so wanted to start her own management company. So we kind of went into business with her, and she had some obvious connections through working with Ronnie. And so we flew out to NAMM in Los Angeles and did like a signing at the, I think it was at the Dean Markley guitar strings booth at NAMM, and started building up this rapport and a strategy. And one of the things that came up was it was one of Sabbath's last tours, Heaven and Hell's last tours before Ronnie unfortunately passed away. They were putting regional bands on certain shows, and she asked us if we wanted to do the Cleveland show. And I was like, okay, like nervous. I mean, we'd opened for some big bands, but like it doesn't get bigger than Sabbath in our scene. So that we went out to Cleveland and opened for Black Sabbath. And I mean, talk about the show of a lifetime. I remember doing sound check. Like, it's so weird because sometimes you go to these small clubs and the sound guys are cranky, or they don't treat you necessarily the greatest, and you've just driven 8 hours. Here we showed up and they just rolled out the carpet for us. It was amazing. Like, wow, we have a sound check at this like amphitheater. And I remember plugging my bass amp in, and it was on the river, this amphitheater, and just playing a few notes, like at geyser volume and just hearing it reverberate throughout Cleveland. I was like, oh my God, this is the coolest day ever. So yeah, that was one for the record books for sure.
Now, is that your career highlight?
That was one of them. That was a long time ago, but that was, I mean, like I said, it doesn't get much bigger than Sabbath, but a lot of things came from that too. That through that connection. I know shortly after that, we were approached by Paul Di'Anno's booking agent, and Paul Di'Anno was the original singer for Iron Maiden. He hadn't played in the United States in decades and wanted to come back here, but he didn't have a band over here. He didn't have a band. He didn't have a band at all at the time. And they had heard us and approached us and wanted to know if we would like to be his backing band and his opening band. So that was a career highlight, because I grew up like Iron Maiden and Geezer Butler. Those were my idols on bass. So I grew up like learning all those bass lines and everything, and now I'm like playing them with the singer from Iron Maiden in front of me on stage. I'm like, are you kidding me? So we did actually 2 tours of North America as his band, where we played double duty every night. We came out as Icarus Witch, played a set, and then went back, changed clothes, and then jumped back on stage and played like a couple hours of Iron Maiden music with Paul Di'Anno. Nice. So that was a highlight. I'll definitely say that was a highlight, because it was just one city after the next, and got to hear all the old stories from the beast himself. So, meow.
Yeah, that's
Onyx the cat.
Yeah, he's our group mascot for our social media education groups for the craft. He's
that's
around. Cool.
So tell me, I closed my door so mine didn't jump up on the computer if I didn't. I have a cat who would just be like up in your face right now if I didn't shut the door. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Traveling around with Icarus Witch and doing music and like with all these different people, you bump into a lot of different people all across the board, man. Celebs and non-celebs, or just diehard pagans, or people of that caliber. Who do you think was the most phenomenal pagan educator or spiritual leader that you've ever met on the road?
That's a good question.
Have you ever been like awestruck? Because I've met pagan musicians like in real life, in which it's like, whoa, I can't believe it. Like, wow, is that, I've been there. Do you ever get starstruck with figures on the road?
I mean, to be honest, even though I'm a second degree priest in the Cabot tradition, I'm still starstruck by Laurie Cabot. I mean, she's a living legend. She just turned 90 last year, and I grew up reading her books and going to Salem, where she is the celebrity, the local celebrity, and now I'm part of her tradition. So that's one that I still get chills, even when we're in the same room doing a ceremony together. It's just like there's some aura about Laurie Cabot that is just otherworldly. She's transcends world. So that's probably the one that I'm blessed enough to be able to still interact with, but still feel that sense of awe when I run into the same circles.
We haven't had the opportunity to interview with Laurie Cabot for obvious reasons, but we did have Alexander Cabot on the Lone Wolf Show a while ago, and he was a great interview as well.
Oh, yeah, he's awesome.
And he was playing his shamanistic drum on the show. Have you ever played music with Alexander Cabot when he was on the drum?
Not yet, but that just gave me some ideas. Alexander's a great guy. He's in some ways taken me under his wing a lot and been a mentor in a lot of ways throughout my development with his tradition. So yeah, I'll have to.
That would be a great collaboration.
Yeah,
would be.
He's real smart. He's very active in the pagan community. I've seen him out there at Witch Fest in New York City, man. He gets around. He had that book, and I hope he's doing good. I hope he's doing swell. So yeah, that's really cool. So he's
an OG on the New York scene too.
He is definitely OG on the New York scene. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. So does earth-based spirituality does it fuse your music style when you write? Does it? Are you a slave to the goddess, brother?
A slave? I don't know. I've never heard that term before. I mean, yeah, I guess so. I say I'm a servant.
Accent.
What's that?
That's his New England accent and jargon.
So we do say servant, same thing, right? Yeah. It influences me in everything I do. So if I pick up a guitar off the wall, it's like it's just another extension of it. So I mean, I try to live my life magically, regardless of whether I'm going out and running errands or sitting down to create something that's going to last for a while, hopefully. So yeah, that's when I become. It touches every part of my life, and especially music. I'll say that, especially music. That's where I feel like, I don't want to say it's a gift necessarily because it's something I've developed and worked on. But I feel like that's where I have the most opportunity to maybe like share messages of positivity is through music.
Now, growing up, what was the spirituality in your family? What did how did they practice? And how did you find your path?
I came from a Lutheran family, which is basically like Catholicism light. Weren't super devout or anything, but like I went through their initiation, their version of Sunday school and confirmation and things like that. And when I hit 13, you get confirmed in that church, and that's when you're viewed as an adult in the eyes of the church, and they hand you a little box of envelopes to give your tithes. And I said, okay, so I'm an adult now. I now have the right to make a decision if I want to continue on this or not. And they were like, well, yeah. And I was like, okay, well, I'm done because I did not resonate with that upbringing at all. I'm glad I experienced it so that I could speak from that perspective and I love learning about all religions, but it didn't touch my spirit at all. And at the same time, I was starting to learn about nature-based spirituality and Wicca and paganism, and just through books and documentaries and things like that. So it was, if around that time, I'm not sure how old you guys are. I'm 52 this year. So this was in the 80s. You're 52 also? Okay. So you remember what it was like. You'd go to the bookstore. It's not like today where you just go online and there's thousands of books. There would be like 10 books, and they would like put them in between the, it was in the New Age section, and, there wasn't a whole lot, but there was always Big Blue, right? So there was Buckland's Book of Magic, of Witchcraft. And so that was a start. Yeah. And I still reference that book. It still stands up, and it's still a big seller for a good reason. So, but, so there were a few books, and I'm like, okay, this feels right to me, right? I'm reading these spells. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do these spells. And they're just mainly because they gave the goddess props. There was talking of like equality, and if anything, maybe more of a female spirituality, which I never really heard from the Christian side. And that spoke to me, and just the reverence for nature. I never really got that from the other traditional religions that I was around. And that's what spoke to me, going out into the woods and feeding deer, the same stuff I did right before this interview, that I've done my whole life. Is like, to me, that felt religious. That felt like I was stirring something inside. So I just wanted to learn more about it, bought every book I could find, went to the library and checked out all these books, did reports on them for school, and just really dug in from a relatively early age. I guess I was probably around 13 when I started casting spells and things of that nature. And that was around the same time I started playing bass and music. So those two paths just kind of grew together.
Were you out of the closet then? Did you let schoolmates know? And if so, how did they treat you because of that?
That's, I mean, I was, I don't think I shied away from it. I didn't, I wouldn't, I found my people, and my folks even though that was their tradition, more so because it's how they grew up, they weren't showing disappointment or like saying that they didn't want me to explore my own ideas. So I was always grateful for that. So I was, I was living at home then, so obviously they knew what I was into. It was, I had my altar and wearing my pentagrams and pentacles and all of that stuff. So I guess I was pretty out of the closet. Yeah, I was, writing about it even back then when I was starting out. So I don't know. I found my people. I think if anything, it helped because it helped me. This is what I'm into. What are you guys into? And it started a lifelong pursuit. So I don't know. I mean, everything's tougher when you're 13. The world is a weird, scary place. It's magical. Everything's magical. You're in this weird transitional phase between childhood naivety and like adult expectations. So it's this liminal space where your mind is like being forced to come into a new world. So what better time, I guess, to set new intentions for a spiritual path. That's how I looked at it, I guess, in hindsight.
So what drew you to the Cabot tradition?
Well, like I said, I'd always, she was one of the authors that I liked. Power of the Witch specifically spoke to me a lot. I remember in the early 90s, I was living in Florida at the time, and I went to visit Salem. It was a place that I'd always wanted to go to, and friends had told me about it. And when I got there, one of the stores I went to was Lori's store. Actually, that's where I bought this pentacle I still wear back in like 93 or something, I think. And she was doing a book signing there for Power of the Witch, was still pretty new. And I felt a resonance at that point. But then, it wasn't until actually just a few years ago where I reached out to become trained within that framework, that tradition. When I lived in Salem in 2015, I moved to Salem briefly. And while I was there, I lived very close to Enchanted, the store that the Cabots are affiliated with. So I would just walk down there to buy my ritual tools and incense and things like that, and got familiar with the vibe of what they were about. And they would have, the store would have like rituals in the back room and things that were open to the public, like circles and classes and stuff. And I did a few of those, and I'm like, okay, this feels right. This feels good. But then I actually moved from Salem back to Pennsylvania, and then the pandemic came and everything shut down. And things like this, and Zoom and stuff were starting to take off, and I wanted to reconnect with all of those folks, and they started to expand their training to the internet, to Zoom like classes, and I'm like, okay, well, this is a perfect time. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to go outside tomorrow. Like I'm going to formalize my study with one tradition so that I can be focused on it. So that was 2021 is when I got my second degree, and it sounds so long ago now. It's weird. Now we're in 2024, but it feels like it was just yesterday in some ways too. I remember I picked up my degree, my certificate, on the day of my hand fasting. My wife Aubrianne and I went up to Salem to get married and hand fasted at the House of Seven Gables, and on my way there, I popped into Enchanted because I just passed this class and picked it up. So that was a magical day. Also getting my official, credentials, plus going in and getting hand fasted by a witch priest outside in Salem. That was a good Beltane, to say the least. So, did I answer your question? I know I tend to go in tangents.
Yes. And I mean, COVID, as bad as it is, I believe everything's meant to be, and it really gave us opportunity to do more of a time with ourselves and really help people move along their path and get to know, themselves better, so they can. So I think there's lots of good that happened with that whole situation.
Absolutely. I mean, our entire album was basically composed during that pandemic shutdown. And again, it was the same thing. Like normally we'll shut down for a month or two here in the winter when you don't really feel like going out and being social, and you kind of hibernate. So the pandemic was just a way exaggerated version of that, where everybody was staying inside and looking inward and questioning the paradigms of their own reality. And but to circle back, I remembered the core of your previous question of maybe why I was attracted to the Cabot tradition. I think it was also because Laurie speaks to science in conjunction with magic, and I think there's a lot of especially newer traditions. There's a little more woo and fluff, and not, my father was a scientist, so I came from that background, and I liked the fact that the Cabots treat witchcraft and psychic phenomena as a science. They want you to prove this stuff. They want you to test your results and work with other groups and chronicle your progress. So all of that clicked in with my scientific mind, and not a lot of traditions really focused on that as much. So I felt like that was a good connection. And also it was just it also has sort of an old school kind of throwback feel to it as well, a little bit, which again, going back to those early 80s and 90s books, and the previous books too, like in the 80s, we were reading books from the 60s and 70s, but that's one of the things that I liked about it, was that it felt like it wasn't a stagnant religion. It wasn't a stagnant faith. They were encouraging you to inject your own creativity and your own mind into it and learn from the traditions and move forward. So that was something that I liked. It wasn't bogged down in dogma or stuck like certain paths might be, more like do it, this way or my way or the highway. This was like, it was fluid but structured, and that fits what I feel comfortable with.
Yeah, hey, man, I'm drawn to that too. With the scientific aspect, I have a scientific mind too, and it just makes sense to me and feels good. And I've met a lot of people that have the same way, and learned some from Patrick McCollum. He also has the same duality in the spirituality. So I totally get it.
You're talking about Salem, Massachusetts, and right next door to Salem is Beverly, Massachusetts, which is like back in the day. I'm pretty sure the history was it used to be Salem, where Beverly was. But anyways, Godsmack, Sully from Godsmack, Beverly, Mass. Them guys are right from there. Did you ever meet Sully from Godsmack? Because I know that he is publicly identified as a Wiccan, and it was like a big deal years ago. Did you ever meet him?
I have not. I was trying to think back to like even previously, because in my music business background, I did meet a lot of folks, but I don't think I ever met Sully. But he's actually a Cabot. He's trained with Laurie.
That's why I asked.
Recently he posted a picture of he and Laurie, and he had his colors on, his sash, Cabot color sash. But no, I personally haven't. But a lot of the folks that I'm circling with and learning from were in his class and know him personally, so speak highly of him. So that is a pretty cool connection. Actually, funny you mentioned that, because just today there was a KNAC, the radio stations now, KNAC.com, put out like a list of the best of 2023 albums, and one of the main guys there put Godsmack first and Icarus Witch second. And I sent that to one of my Cabot brothers, Tom, who I believe he likes both. He comes out to see us whenever we play up in New England and stuff. And I was like, look at this, couple of Cabot rockers topping the charts here at KNAC.
I'm digging it, man. I think it's badass. I'm digging it.
Yeah, I thought it was cool. I remember in the 90s when his album came out and it had a pentagram right there on the front, like not an inverted pentagram. Like, okay, that I wasn't used to seeing that, especially on a more commercial, metal hard rock type thing. So it was interesting later on to see, like, he did videos. There's a video that he did at a castle up there that with Laurie and some of the other Cabots in it. So very cool how those worlds combine, the rock and music and witchcraft worlds combine.
Yep. Monica, what else you got?
Oh my goodness. So you are the bass player. What did you just do bass? Did you learn acoustic or regular guitar? I don't know what you call it, but I played around with the regular guitar. I'm getting a guitar soon. I have a friend, Daniel Michael, that's starting Shaman Guitar, and he's making me a bass guitar. So I'm going to try that out. And so what brought you to picking up the bass, and what's your tips for someone learning?
I feel like I was drawn to the bass visually and sonically at first when I was probably 12 or 13. I remember my dad used to like play the stereo with the bass all the way up and the treble all the way down, and I didn't know what the instruments were when I was a kid, but I would feel it. With the bass, you feel it more than you hear it in a lot of rock music. And I remember listening to these songs, I'm like, what is making the glass shake? That's the powerful thing there. The guitars are all out front and everything, and the vocals are all out front. But I wanted to know what was making the air move and making my chest move. And once I found out, I remember looking at like a catalog. I think it was like the Sears catalog that used to come out, dating myself there. But there was a guitar next to a bass guitar, and the bass guitar was bigger and like heavier looking. And I'm like, I want the big one. What's the difference? And my brother was like, that's a bass. Okay, I want the bass. And then I come to find out that like my favorite bands at the time, like Black Sabbath, Iron Maiden, Rush, they were all led by the bass lines and the bass players. And so I was already drawn to that. I didn't even know what it was. And then once I started learning, I'm like, okay, that's what I want to do. And it worked out pretty well, because for every like 10 guitar players, there's one person that focuses on bass. So I always had a gig, if you learn bass, somebody will always need a bass player. So my tip there is just, treat it, don't treat it like a small guitar, honor it like its own presence, because you own this powerful part of the sound spectrum when you're the bass. I'm not a super flashy player really, like, when I'm on stage and stuff. I mean, I move around, but like, I like locking into the drums and creating that rhythm. And for me, if I can look out in an audience and see people doing that, and like dancing or whatever, like I know that I'm casting a sonic spell because they're reacting to the way the drummer and I are moving the air and moving the music. So so I do, I mess around with guitar. I mean, I have regular guitars, as you say, and acoustic guitars. I'm not as proficient at that, but I do like the way they sound, and I like to pick them up and play because you play differently every instrument you pick up. I play keyboards a little bit, and so it's cool to break out of your habit. If you only pick up the same 4 strings every time, your hands are gonna go in the same spot every time. If you pick up the piano, the notes are the same, but they're all in different places. So it forces you to like write differently and create differently and think differently. So for me, it was just a natural, immediate lure toward the bass guitar, and I always just focused on that. But meanwhile, I've always had other guitars and other instruments in the background that I tried to pick up. Flute, and I'm a big fan of the flute. I'm not a very good player, but I love the way it sounds, and I like traditional instruments. I like traditional drums and things like that. But yeah, I guess I just decided to focus on one thing, and I've been working ever since.
Yeah. I like doing the drum, and I really I fell in love with that bass and that rhythm. So that's why I went for a bass, because it's been my dream to pick one of those up.
Cool.
So what's your advice to the upcoming next pagan that wants to be a wicked, badass pagan musician, man? What's the advice?
Just fly your colors, be yourself, and don't shy away from it. I just think that, I just think you got to be true to yourself. Our style of traditional heavy metal, Icarus Witches, is a niche. It's a small niche within metal, which is a niche within rock, which is in a niche within pop music. So we're already very limited in terms of the people that understand or follow our genre. Now you throw in like, we're a pagan traditional metal band, you just narrow that down even further.
Yeah.
But that's what speaks to my soul, so that's what I'm going to speak. That's my truth. Right. If I did another kind of music, or were writing lyrics that were not coming from my soul, it would feel fraudulent, and I would not. I do music as an escape, man. I do music as a way to like connect with divinity and feel something universal. And so I'm not interested in going out and doing cover songs. I'm not interested in doing songs that are about something other than what moves my soul. That's how I feel about it. And yes, it's small and limiting in some ways, but it's also freeing and extremely gratifying in other ways. And I'll take that any day of the week.
Hell yeah, man. Thanks for coming on the Lone Wolf Show, man.